have to be that person to deserve. And I think that's where I agree with, in quotation marks, the toxicness of the addiction to the struggle, because then it's like, you know, you feel almost like you deserve more because you've been through more, and you might not.
I hear you, but it's like, it's almost not a selfishness, just, but it's like, I don't know how to word it, but when you do go through so much, your conscious feels like there must be more to life, if that makes sense, than the struggle. So when you've gone through so much struggle, you feel like you deserve something else because you've gone through so much of this, that there must be a lot more of that to come, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that mentality exists in a lot
Like,
of
you
people.
know, like, do you mean like life is in cycles of good and bad?
Yeah.
Which is true. I do agree with that.
But you're right.
But then I feel like, on the back of that, like, I feel like sometimes that can be a thing as well, of like, oh, you know, it's just a bad cycle and the good will come. And it's like, but are you doing anything? Like, why are you in this bad cycle, first of all? Because there are circumstances, but I don't know, we can control more than we think, and change the trajectory of things. But for me, anyway, like, the thing that throws me off is not seeing immediate results. So then you think that change isn't happening, or you're not getting closer to it.
That is very true. That is very true. But a lot of the time, because you're in the middle of it, you can't see everything.
That is also
people
true.
outside looking in will tell you. You see it all the time, little examples like the gym, etc. Like, you'll be going, you don't see anything on yourself, but
Gym
people will
struggle.
say to you, oh, you look like you're losing weight or whatever, putting on muscle. Do you think
Is that another excuse? Putting on muscle.
do you, I don't even know. Anyway.
Go on.
That's such a passing comment.
I know, I'm really just picking on you today, I'm sorry.
What did I say? Yeah, I've completely lost my train of thought. Something you said, but anyway, I can't remember.
I remember, it was something like... No, I've gone so blank.
Anyway, right, previously, anyway, you said that once you've been through the struggle, it doesn't leave you. This is not what I wanted to say, but let's go with this. Okay?
I know, I was like, we've just changed direction, and we'll roll with it.
Yeah, can you...
Elaborate?
Yes, elaborate on that one.
Well...
Why do you think that is? Let me ask that question. Why do you think that once you've been through the struggle, it never leaves you?
It never leaves you. Because that's your story.
And do you feel that you always have to...
Now, let me explain what I mean by it. So when I say, like, once you've been through the struggle, and I'm not talking about the struggles of, like, everyone's struggles. I'm talking about real, you know, like, struggles. Like, if you've been through that experience, that won't leave you, because as you're moving through life in different spaces...
Yeah.
You go through, it's a process, you know, like, first, for me, again, I always just have to bring it back to me because that's all I can talk about, but for me anyway, like, you know, there's always that feeling of, do I really belong here though, or imposter syndrome, or over perfectionism, because you really do have to work twice as hard sometimes. And then, on a positive note, there's just an appreciation for stuff, and also an appreciation for the fact that you could be talking to someone and they're looking so normal, but you just really don't know what they've been through. And you know that because you have been through that. So you can get super, super further down the line. Like, even look at someone like, you know, people like Jay-Z and stuff. As far as they've gone, they always have that idea and passion to create change for people who are in the position that they were once in. So it never leaves you. It's just your story. Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. Because a lot of what you do, like you said, is to benefit those people that are coming from where you're coming from. That does make sense. So in a sense, your eyes are always what it should be. I'll say it should, it's up to you what you want to do in your life. But ideally, it would be nice if your eyes are always thinking or looking back to where you come from and trying to help the people. But a lot of people do
and it
that
can be
with
a
their kids.
motivator as well. Sorry, not to cut you off, but that's something I wanted to say. Like, it can also be a motivator, because that's something that works for me when I'm going through something in particular in the present moment. I'll be like, but remember the other mountains you've climbed. Like, look at you 4 or 5 years ago, you would not even recognize yourself. So if you can't recognize yourself from 4 or 5 years ago, one day you won't recognize this, you know. So it acts as like something to push you forward.
That's true. But you see that with the struggle, yeah? I think a lot of people need to take accountability and realise that they make a lot of bad decisions.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
9 times out of 10, you know when you're making a bad decision as well.
Yeah. You always... The only time you don't know is the first time. The other times, you kind of know, because you know now what would come from this, and you do it. So that's what I'm saying, like, you know what you mentioned earlier about good cycles and bad cycles, and I do believe that is part of life and that's normal. But if your bad cycle has lasted 20 years,
you're not doing
you really have to look at your, you really have to take accountability for what in your life, if not what in your life you have caused, but what in your life you have perpetuated. Because you could grow up in any kind of situation or whatever. Does that then mean that as an adult, when you... Now I'm trying to think, so I'm like, but can people... Like, as an adult, you do kind of have to take responsibility to change what you can change about yourself in a better way. And only you can do that for yourself. And if you're continuing a bad cycle in your life, just hoping for a good day to come, you have to be accountable for the fact that you have to make that good day come. Like, happiness is not just found or given or discovered. It's really created. Like, you have to create that in your life with healthier habits or whatever it is that you need. But that's, for me anyway, that is just a fact, I feel.
Kind of have to, do more. That's why I get the sentiment of, like, let me not even necessarily say the 24 hours, but there's hours in the day, like, for you to evaluate and try and move yourself forward in some sort of way, whether it's mentally, physically, whatever. Like, what have you been doing? What are you doing?
And that's
what
the
are you
thing,
trying
I
to
don't
do?
think people appreciate... Because everything's so big, like, you know, you blow up and it's done and blah, blah, blah. And that's the world that we're living in. And yes, by people, I'm talking about myself. But, like, people don't realise that progress and change comes from consistency, like small, consistent things every day.
Yeah.
And like you said, like with the gym, you won't see results straight away. Or even, like... 6 months down the line, you might not even really be seeing it, but you have to trust the process that, you know, the more you work at it, the more, you know, people, you have to commit to that vision.
I do understand that. But there is something about the struggle that's not enticing, but for me anyway, when I'm going through my moments of the struggle, it might not even necessarily, it's a different type of struggle to what it used to be. But I mean, in terms of, how can I put this? Even creating, the struggle of creating something is something that's not really seen. You just see the outcome, right?
Yeah.
But you see, like, when you're trying to put things together, but it's not working. Or let me say, when you're trying to put things together, but it's not working or it's not happening at the rate that you want to do it, there's an element of that struggle which can keep you going,
Yeah.
And when that struggle is missing, it's so easy. It has been easy. Let me not say every time to be complacent.
It's true. Like, it acts like a driving force to push you forward. You know, like if there's certain things that you've experienced or a position that you've been in, you know that you never want to be there again, and it kind of acts as that. But one thing I want to talk about is slightly left from that is with creating. Do you feel, because I've never really thought about this, but do you feel like sometimes most of what you talk about creatively is your struggle? Do you know what I mean? It's an interesting one because I've just realised, like, when I'm writing, like, my spoken word stuff or whatever, my poems, I write more. Obviously, it's because it's expression and release and whatever, but I do tend to have a focus more on the hard times rather than inspiring stuff or the good times or...
That's interesting.
And if I am writing about the inspiring times, it will always be known that it wasn't like that before.
Yeah. I don't know if that's
Are we addicted to the struggle? I'm joking.
I feel like possibly,
Possibly. I've never thought of that, but when you said creating, I was like, wait, like, I've actually never thought about that. Like, have I ever written anything to celebrate something? Or not even... Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I definitely have, but... I'm just thinking of something, it's so funny. But it's not funny, it's just ironic.
Sorry.
Oh, was that you?
Just a little, let me just go on airplane mode.
No, I was just thinking of something that's so ironic, is that a song that I did write that was a celebration still had elements of the struggle in it.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, even when you write about, like, it's never, woo, this is where I'm at. It's like, this is how far I've come from,
Yeah.
Even with me, like, I do that. I've been writing about heartbreaks that really don't even exist anymore.
But you know what it is? It's within you because it's like, it impacted you so much.
Yeah.
And
it makes you think, like, do you think you're not over it, but do you know what I mean? Like, have you really moved through and past it? And how much does it tie into your identity?
Yeah, it's like, it's part of your puzzle that makes you, basically. Like, you can't, you take that piece away, you're taking a piece away of yourself, so it's always there. It's just not always on display, I guess. But it's always going to be there.
Do you think that if you've made it and you've come from the struggle, you now owe people your story? Because I've often feel, or I've seen, like, backlash isn't the right word, but there will be people will sometimes feel a type of way for people who have moved so far along, they no longer acknowledge publicly that they've come from that place. And I'm thinking, do you have to publicly acknowledge that? Like, you can give yourself permission to experience a whole new lifestyle and appreciate that lifestyle is your life. Like, do you have to bring the
I don't think you have to. I wouldn't say you have to, no.
I don't think you do.
But
I don't think...
No, you don't have to at all. You don't have to at all. But I think you should.
Do you?
Yeah, I think you should still, like, be in touch.
Why?
I think you should be in touch with where you come from because that's what raised you almost. That's what gave you the drive and the purpose to do what you do. But I don't think you have to live by it. Like, I don't think you still have to live by it everywhere you go. Oh yeah, I'm from I've done this. I came from that. I don't think you need to do that. But to neglect it completely.
But is it neglecting it if, say, like 20, 30 years from now, you're living you've crafted a totally different life for yourself?
I get that.
And it doesn't mean that.
But that's almost like you see when the George Floyd passed away, yeah?
Yeah.
There was people that you would have been nice for them to speak up, yeah? Because they are from that struggle. That same struggle. Like, you've been pulled over plenty of times by police. You know that, bro. Like, you know what that man went through.
Yeah.
Maybe not to that same extent, but you know, like...
Yeah.
But because you're so far gone now...
You think it doesn't belong to you
Yeah,
anymore.
But sometimes... Like me, I'm not fussed in it. I think no matter where I'm at, I'm still going to have the same disdain towards certain things. Because I've been through that for so long. Just because I'm so far gone from it doesn't mean that I'm over it completely.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, say if I was living in the hills now, when the George Floyd incident happened, it would have still outraged me enough because I've been in those situations where you're being stopped for no reason. You're being questioned for no reason.
Yeah.
I remember one time, this will never leave me. This is probably when not my first encounter, but I was really young. I was like 13, 14. Yeah. And I've just gone to the barber shop. And I'm walking back now. And then 3 police officers pull up, hop out their car, surround me, whatever. Cool. Usual stuff. This, that, the other. It shouldn't be usual, but
that's
it's
even
so
that,
usual.
like 13, 14, you're literally an actual baby in the
Crazy,
world.
right?
Like, you're a kid. You only just came out of primary school, really. All right, maybe a couple of years, but
Yeah,
all right, maybe I'm exaggerating. But like, no, for real though, 13, 14 to have 3 grown men surround you
for no reason.
For actually no reason.
Talking whatever they was talking about, asking me stupid questions.
And how do you even know, like, okay, you're fine, but like, how do you even know how to answer those questions?
You don't,
like,
really.
How do you even know what you're being asked?
You don't. You just, you're going off either what you've seen or what you've heard. That's literally it. So.
And that's what I'm saying, like, not everyone has the same 24 hours,
literally.
You know? And that's what I mean, like, even with me, you move into new spaces, but you still sometimes feel, do I belong here? Or I have to really over excel to feel like I belong here. But not everyone needs to do that. Do you know what I mean? Well, no, I don't even know if I really need to do that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's what I do. That's how I feel. But there's some people who walk around the world not feeling that way. And that's where the difference is. And that's what I mean. Like, the struggle just doesn't leave you if you've grown up that way. And it changes your mindset. Like, you look at life differently, you know?
I think that's why traveling's so important. Because you get to see different people. Like, this wasn't even through travelling, like, out of the country. This was just different parts of the city. And I remember, meeting people that looked just like me, but their experiences is nothing like me, and that shocked me. Like, you didn't have to go through X, Y, and Z. What? Like, how?
Yeah.
You're a young black man too. How did you not have to go through the estate life or that kind of stuff? Like, you didn't have to go through none of that. You've just lived in a 4-bed house your whole life, like off the ends, away from trouble. You didn't experience no dramas. What? Like, to me, that baffled me. And I wouldn't say I didn't respect them, but I almost looked at them like they was foreign to me because you didn't come from the struggle. Obviously, as I've got older, I understand that that's what you want. Like, that's what you kind of want, isn't it? Like, you want to be away from that because that struggle, especially the council estate lifestyle and coming, like, all of that, that's traumatic.
Yeah.
But you just live through it and it's just normal now.
And do you feel like you don't even realise it's traumatic until you're around other people who haven't been through it and you're like, you're really just out here comfortable and happy and, you know, just looking at the world like it's kind of safe.
Cutting through life with no worries. It's weird. It's weird. I'll never forget, like, the feeling that I had in myself when I was working somewhere and obviously they've invited me out for work drinks or whatever, but we've gone to an area which could be, anything can happen based off my knowledge, but I'm in the place now and obviously I've had to do the same things that I would have done if I was with my friends in terms of, like, scoping out the venue, this, that, the other. But then obviously, like, at the same time I'm realising I'm with my work people, like, this I might just look like a strange guy to them. So I'm just like, you have to kind of not let that side of you escape because when you're from it, you're from it. You can't, like, it never leaves you, right? When you're from something, you're just from it. And the struggle is exactly the same because there's default settings. Like, there's times, when I've been in my house, not recently, but recent enough, where I'm blessed enough now to be able to provide for myself completely. Yeah. But, you know, like, when you're having a lazy moment and there's no food in the house, in this stage. Yeah. And you might have been in that situation before when you was young, Yeah. Let me not say no food, but you know what I mean. Yeah. And I can just go back to default settings, like, I can make something out of what I've got here, like, I can make a meal out of this and that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know
Actually,
that
I
within
can just
yourself,
go to the shop.
you could literally go to the shop if you really want to. But
Yeah.
those default settings of what you come from never escape you, innit? Like,
No, it's
that's
true.
survival kit.
It's true. Like, it's survival instincts. And it's a process to try and, like, think differently and shed that and let it go.
But do you think you need to? Do you think it's unhealthy to keep that with you your whole life? No matter how far you go. Because I don't. I think it's almost like street smarts.
Now let me think. Because you got me there. And that's why I get when people say that they want their children to experience some struggle. Because even with me, I always think to myself, do I actually want to move out into the country, or do I still want to stay in London? Knowing that it's not the safest, nicest place, just because I want my children to be able to grow up a little bit hardened, obviously not growing up in a struggle way, but a little bit, you know, like to have that street smart. And I think there's a difference between having street smarts and being able to read people because of your experiences and stuff like that, or just know how to survive. But there's also a difference between that and just still holding trauma.
Yeah, I get it. It's weird because I always say that.
Because that's the thing, like, have you really made it? Because you can make it physically, but have you made it mentally if you're still doing things that you used to do when you were younger, when you don't need to do those things anymore? Like, why would you choose to be that way if you don't have to? And why did you work so hard to not be that way, just to be that way?
I think the key thing about what you said there, I think in life, I haven't mastered it, so I can't say for sure. But in life, I feel like you can make it mentally before you do physically. Like, once your mentality changes, you're already making it. Because how you judge success is personal. So once you've been able to change your mentality, I think that's something that can't be denied. And in terms of what you were saying before, in terms of showing your children the struggle, we all know, like, you can speak to people, but sometimes experience is the greatest teacher, yeah?
The only teacher.
But now, like, an obvious conflict for me would be, let's say I did now, I don't want him to go